Hello and welcome, and thank you all for joining us for the rescheduled March QB Talks, and thanks to our presenter Liz Scott for opening up her schedule to present today's webinar on QBO payroll and HR resources. And for those of you who do not know Liz, Liz is the CEO of Accounting Lifeline, the co-host of the Happy Hour. She is Insightful Accountant's QBO contributing editor. She is an Intuit Advanced Certified QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor, a member of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network, an international speaker and trainer. I am Gary Dehart, the publisher of an Insightful Accountant, and I'll be the guy behind the scenes once we get this show rolling. And so this session is sponsored by Future Forward 2022, Integrate to Accelerate, which is a free Insightful Accountant virtual conference scheduled for May 18th and 19th, in which we're featuring 8 sessions, up to 8 CPE credits, 13 speakers who will be covering topics like integrating your tech stack, accelerating QBO through integrations, zero integrations, and much more. Reg link is in the chat already, so you can certainly copy and paste that, put it in a window, or I will also post a poll real quick where you can tell us if you would like to have us send you some information on that event. Let me post that for you here. Simple yes or no, and we'll move along after that. We'll give this about 10 seconds just so, because I know Liz has tons to cover, and we want to respect everybody's time. So I'll close this out in about 5 more seconds. So if you are interested, just hit yes. All right, well, thanks. We're gonna go ahead and close that out. And then a couple of housekeeping items, and that is, this is not a CPE session. If you have questions, put them in the chat or in the Q&A box. The link to the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours after the closing of this event, and slides are available. They're already in the chat, so you should see them there. If you don't, let us know, and we will we'll get them added. But also it will there'll be a link to it on the email that you receive as the follow-up to this event as well. So without any further delay, Liz, I will turn this over to you, and I am going to go quiet and dark. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you for that introduction. And I'll just verify you can see my screen, my sharing.
Yes.
Okay, well, fantastic. I'm glad everyone's here. And like Gary said, yes, this is the rescheduled session. So I'm glad that you were able to make it over to this rescheduled session. There is, of course, always a lot to talk about whenever it comes to payroll. Many of you might already be using the new payroll lineup for QuickBooks Online. But if you are not yet, if you're somebody who is still in Intuit Online Payroll or a different payroll solution, this is going to be some information on what that new QuickBooks Online Payroll lineup will look like. And then if you are already a QuickBooks Online user, here might be some tips and tricks that you may not know exist. From a high level, there's a lot inside of the QuickBooks Online Payroll program. I want to say that there's the training, there's certification, there's QuickBooks Time, and then there's also HR resources and benefits. So those are some of the topics that we're going to go through today. Gary did such a nice job of introducing me, so I'm just going to say hello to those of you who I know, and then hi, nice to meet you to those of you who I don't know. I'm like a lot of you out there. I'm a practitioner and help small businesses inside of the QuickBooks Online ecosystem. So that is exactly where we focus. And whenever we're working with our QuickBooks clients, we often try to fit them into solutions that are going to be either directly integrated, which is why a lot of times we recommend QuickBooks Online Payroll, or it's going to be something inside of that ecosystem that fits really nicely into, most of the time, some type of online solution. Today, we're going to go through QuickBooks Payroll lineup, the HR resources. I think that the HR resources are something that many people are kind of overlooking. And so we're going to go through how have we utilized the HR resources that are available. Because if you have a QuickBooks Online Payroll subscription, either the premium or the elite, you get QuickBooks HR resources included in that subscription. So I want to show you how we've used the HR resources to be able to help our own firm and then also the clients that we work with. QuickBooks Time. So again, if you are using either the premium or the elite, you're automatically getting QuickBooks Time included in that subscription. So making sure that you're aware of some of the benefits of using QuickBooks Time. And then lastly, if you're someone who wants to become certified, how do you get certified? I think that I'd like to make sure that everybody's aware of the various trainings that are out there, because it's a little bit confusing because there's so much that has been provided in training that whenever people are going over to take that exam, they may not have been able to take or known to take all of the training that is really needed in order to be able to pass that exam. So if you are somebody who has already started with migrating, then you've gone through this migration process of moving from Intuit Online Payroll into QuickBooks Online Payroll. If you are somebody who hasn't yet migrated, you've got a little more time before you're going to be migrated on your behalf of the clients, your own firm. So you have some control right now if you are somebody who hasn't migrated yet. There's some options here, and we're going to look through if you are migrating over, what are your options? And then also what information is migrated. So when you're migrating and you're inside of the Intuit Online Payroll, that is an area that many of us have used for our clients. And there's a ton of resources and tools and abilities inside of the Intuit Online Payroll. And I've heard a lot of our peers come back and say, well, I don't have all of those things available to me in QuickBooks Online Payroll. And I'm going to say, maybe take a second look, because Intuit Online Payroll has continued to grow in its features. And if there is something missing that you haven't found a good fit for inside of QuickBooks Online Payroll, be sure to share that, because that's feedback that as the payroll team is developing the new lineup, they're listening to what would make QuickBooks Online Payroll a really good solution. So if you're migrating over, right now you have a toggle inside of Intuit Online Payroll to be able to migrate yourself over or to migrate on behalf of your clients. The things that are going to migrate over are going to be the employee details. So for each company that's migrated, all of the employee details are going to come over and be migrated as well. So is their W-2 information. So all prior years, you're not going to lose that. That will also still be data that will be available to you, but inside of this new online payroll location. And then the pay schedule, that's going to also migrate over with you. So there's not going to be any reason to set up a new schedule. All of those details about pay period, pay date, all of that will follow over. The reports, there's a lot of reports inside of QuickBooks Online that is payroll specific. A lot of the reports that are now available for QuickBooks Online Payroll inside of QuickBooks Online, you can do some customization. Again, if there's something specific that you're looking for, throw it over into chat, because I'm curious. I wonder if there's a report that might address that, but it has to be filtered. I also, if there's something that is not yet covered, it'd be great to know, because the payroll team is definitely listening to our feedback. So they're happy to hear what is it that we are looking for. Alerts. So any type of alert that pops up, maybe you're missing some information, maybe a hire date, any of those kinds of things. Pay date. So your pay date is coming up and you want to be able to get an alert or notification that payroll's coming up. Those will still happen. And then notes will also migrate over. One of the questions that has been asked is, will you have subscription level options? And the answer to that is yes. So inside of the payroll solution, and we're going to look at a couple of other questions as well, But when you're inside of the QuickBooks Online payroll solution itself, you can decide to upgrade or downgrade. And it's going to be inside of your account and settings right next to where, if you are already a QuickBooks Online user, you have your account options here for accounting, and then you have your payroll options right next to it. So you can downgrade or you can upgrade based on the client, based on the needs, based on if they have QuickBooks time needs that are more robust and they need the elite option, or maybe they thought they needed the elite option and they actually would be fine in a premium subscription. You've got the option to be able to upgrade and downgrade. I'm going to look at some of the questions that are coming over into chat. So is there a link to the slides? I'm going to make sure that, Gary, those slides that are in there, are they visible to everyone? Because Keith, you should be able to see inside of chat, there's a PDF that you can download. Keith, if you're not able to download that PDF, can you make sure that you just put another,
Yeah, it looks like it actually went, Liz, it looks like it actually is host and panelist only, if you can repost that.
Sure. Okay, I would be happy to. So let me
repost it to everybody.
Added, and that way you will see it. Okay, give me just a second to make sure that I get that uploaded, because I want you to have the option to look at these slides now with us or either later. Let's get those in there. Boom. Hopefully that is now available for everyone. Okay. So I see that there's some comments about migrating over, and then also what will it look like once you migrate, and then what about the access to standalone? Okay, those are all really great questions that I'm going to go ahead and say these are going to be answered live, and let's go ahead and move over because you are right on track with what we're going to cover next. So if you are somebody who's got clients that are in Intuit Online Payroll and you're wondering what are they going to be able to see, they are going to have access to this new QuickBooks Online Payroll standalone subscription. And the standalone subscription is going to exist without QuickBooks Online, the accounting solution. There are going to be some people who might be in a different accounting solution, which is the whole reason that they're in Intuit Online Payroll. So they don't have an accounting solution attached to them at the moment. When those Intuit Online Payroll clients are transitioned over to Intuit Online Payroll, that standalone, there was a question about access. That standalone access is something that you can use with your login credentials. But instead of being in our traditional QuickBooks Online accountant dashboard, you're going to actually see it in the drop down below when you say, I'm going to choose which company to log into. So you use your Intuit Online or your Intuit Online credentials. And instead of going directly into your QBOA where your client list is, instead, standalone subscriptions are listed below. So what I mean by that is when you go to log in and you're at the client level inside of your QBOA, your standalone subscriptions are not there. Once they have been transitioned over into QuickBooks Online, and then they have the payroll subscription that's attached, then you would be able to see it from your traditional dropdown. So it's using the same credentials, you're going to be able to have access to QuickBooks Online Payroll standalone, but until it's considered a QuickBooks Online company, it's outside of the online platform. Your clients will also have access, but they will see a solution that looks very similar to QuickBooks Online minus all of the accounting. So if you think about logging into QuickBooks Online and there is just the payroll center and the taxes center, and then some payroll reports, that is exactly what your client will see. or you will see if you are somebody who has migrated from Intuit Online Payroll over into the standalone. So this is another one. Will clients be able to see pricing? The answer to that is no. If you are someone who is offering wholesale pricing to your clients, no, they will not be able to see the pricing. If you're someone who says, I like my clients to be able to pay for their own subscriptions, then yes, of course, they would be able to see the pricing visible in that same area that we were just looking at for being able to downgrade or upgrade. We're going to go into an actual payroll subscription in a minute, but these are some questions that I keep hearing, and so I wanted to go over some of these first. When a client has an existing QuickBooks Time subscription, will it be linked automatically to QuickBooks Online Payroll? And the answer to that is, in my experience, no. So what needed to happen first is that Intuit Online Payroll subscription needed to be migrated into QuickBooks Online Payroll. Once it was migrated and they had an existing, I'm going to say it was a T-Sheets account, they had an existing T-Sheets account, then we needed to merge those two. And in my world, what I did is I reached out to QuickBooks support and I asked for help to make sure that there was nothing lost and we got the subscriptions to be tethered together. One of my other peers, her experience is that the QuickBooks Time subscription was available and there was nothing that they needed to do. They didn't call support. But for me, my peace of mind, taking care of my clients, I wanted to make sure that the QuickBooks Time subscription and the payroll subscription were both integrated, so nothing was lost. The other question that I'm being asked a lot is, when you're migrated from Intuit Online Payroll to QuickBooks Online Payroll, what subscription level are you automatically put in? And the answer to that is Core. So most of the migrated users are going to automatically be subscribed to Core. And if they are somebody who has that standalone QuickBooks Time subscription, they'll need to be upgraded to Premium or Elite in order to have that integration with their QuickBooks Time. Let's see, did I get a lot of these questions answered? Because these are good ones. Yay, I'm glad you got the slides. So this question is, let's see, Kathy, you're asking me if the client owns their QuickBooks software, not the Pro Advisor, but the Pro Advisor owns the QuickBooks Online Payroll, how does that convert? Okay, so it sounds like you are offering as a Pro Advisor Intuit Online Payroll, probably from a wholesale, probably, I'm going to say, but maybe not. But if they own their own QuickBooks Online software, one option for you to do is just say, well, then now they will be paying for their payroll subscription. And that would be one option, because now they're both in the same platform, right? If you decided to keep them in the standalone, then you could have the pricing separated. You would still be able to offer the wholesale pricing in the standalone, and then they would have their QuickBooks Online account. Otherwise, one option would be to say then they would move over their QuickBooks Online accounting subscription over to wholesale, and then also the payroll would stay as a wholesale billing. Whenever I've done that in the past, because Kathy, you might run into this, whenever you are migrating a client from self-pay to wholesale billing, they're not going to get the discount for wholesale billing because that subscription already exists. So you're not going to be able to give them your discounted Pro Advisor rate, but that would just be for the existing accounts. The payroll piece, that is actually different. Even though it would be in the same spot, you could still continue to offer them the wholesale pricing, and that would be where they would get the discount. So that would be an option there. And so Jean, another question, QuickBooks Time, how does time tracking? Okay, so we'll look at more QuickBooks Time because that's also a really good question. All right, I think got most of those. So RC, you're asking, what do I mean by standalone? There's two different options here. If you are somebody who has a client who wants to stay in QuickBooks Online standalone and they do not need QuickBooks Online accounting, they don't have to subscribe to the accounting piece in order to still have payroll. That's designed for, I've had a client before that they did not want their payroll to be inside of their accounting. They had an office manager, they had workers that were able to enter invoices. They just did not want everybody to have visibility to payroll. So they had a QuickBooks Online subscription, but then they also had a standalone QuickBooks Online payroll subscription. And the two are different in the sense that these payroll or QuickBooks Online users don't have to have access to payroll. So that's what a standalone means. Let's see. Trudy, I think that you should be able to see the slides. So what was the answer to about payroll for desktop? Desktop right now, if you're somebody who's got a client who's in QuickBooks Desktop and they're using payroll there, this is really going to apply to QuickBooks Online specifically. Let's see, Kathy, if your client owns, okay, so it looks like that question, wholesale, yes. We will be talking about QuickBooks Time, but we're not really going to be diving into QuickBooks Desktop payroll. That product is in existence. It's not part of the necessary migration. Intuit Online Payroll is what's being sunset. So those of you who are out there, IOP is what most of us call it, but those of you out there who are using IOP, that program, that payroll program is going away, and all of those subscriptions are being migrated over into QuickBooks Online Payroll. So that's really what this is about today. The wholesale pricing. Danny, you got a great one right here. So how many employees will QuickBooks Online Payroll support? I have a client with 400 employees. So Danny, there is actually a price break whenever you have over, I don't remember if it's 15 employees. Once you get over so many employees, then you actually get a price break per employee whenever you're looking at the subscription. As far as being able to handle 400 employees, that would be a lot. I've not had a client who had 400 employees. I've been in scenarios where it was a seasonal business and they had a ton of employees that would come and go throughout the entire season. And so we probably total had something like that. And we didn't have an issue running payroll in QuickBooks Online Payroll. But I think the thing that you might be most curious about is the cost. So I would chat with support on that one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to make sure that we get to some of these other questions. Gary, do you mind launching the poll? Because we're curious right now, how many users are still in Intuit Online Payroll? I don't think I've got the ability to launch that. Thank you. So let's go ahead and see how many of your clients are still using Intuit Online Payroll? Because there's a lot of questions here that are being asked about the migration. So that definitely helps me on where do I focus some of this conversation today. All right, thank you. All right. So not quite half of you are saying that, yes, you've still got clients that are in Intuit Online Payroll. That's quite a few. So let's talk about the QuickBooks Online Payroll lineup. So that way we've got a little more clarity about the 3 subscription levels and Core, Premium, and Elite. Those 3 payroll subscriptions each have their own features. Let's look at them. So Core is the I'm going to say it's the basic. So somebody who needs to be able to run unlimited payrolls, so they're not going to be charge per payroll. So they want to be able to have new hire reporting. That's done for you inside of QuickBooks Online Payroll. All of the subscription levels are all going to have full service features. So previously, we used to think about assisted payroll or full service payroll. Inside of the QuickBooks Online Payroll subscriptions, Core, Premium, and Elite, all three of those are full service. The option is, if you are somebody who says, I don't want the full service features, you can turn those off, and we'll look at how to turn those off here in a second. But inside of Core, you've got the 24-hour direct deposit. You still have the calculation for tax payments, for the forms, the end of year filing, being able to have auto payroll. So whenever I'm thinking about auto payroll, for some of you who have been in other solutions, they sometimes call it set and forget it. So that's exactly what auto payroll is. You can go in and you can say, my employees always receive 40 hours. They're maybe owners, they're always going to receive a once a month paycheck. So those are some of the auto payroll features. Set it and forget it. Once it's in there, yes, you can go in and you can edit the auto payroll, but unless you needed to make an edit, it just runs itself, which is really nice. The premium subscription gets all of the things that were included in Core, plus you also get QuickBooks Time. And then you also get some help with onboarding. So if you've got someone who's migrating from a different payroll solution over into QuickBooks Online Payroll, you actually have some setup review help to be able to say, did I get everything right? Oftentimes, if I've got a client, I don't want them to migrate from a different solution during the middle of a quarter. I want them to at least wait until the end of the quarter. I know some people say end of year. I don't think end of year is necessary, but I definitely do think that end of quarter migration is best. That is not true for it being somebody who's migrating from Intuit Online Payroll over into QuickBooks Online Payroll. They're really, because it's the same and all of the data is migrating over. I'm really just talking about migrating from some other solution like Paychex or Paycom or Gusto or something other than that. Same day direct deposit. So if you, I'm a terrible, this is one of the reasons why I don't like processing payroll for my clients, because if I forget, that's terrible. And so I have this horrible guilty feeling of somebody didn't get their grocery money. So one of the options that is available to you inside of QuickBooks Online Payroll Premium or Elite is same day direct deposit. So if for some reason you get up in the morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to process payroll. If you process payroll by 7 a.m. Eastern, they're going to have the same day direct deposit. The other pieces is the HR support. We're going to look at what exactly is included in HR support. And then the automated tax payments and filing forms. Core had that as well, but at the state and federal level. Premium is going to also include your local level. Core, if you don't have a state that has weird local taxes, then you're covered inside of Core. But for example, I live in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, our Oklahoma unemployment is a manual file. There's not a authorization for third-party processors right now for online. So if I'm in the premium solution, QuickBooks Online Payroll is going to process those forms for me. But because it's a weird local tax and the filing is manual, that wouldn't necessarily be covered under Core if it was more of a local county level. Let's see. Elite. The biggest difference with Elite is you have some security whenever it comes to tax penalties. So for tax penalties, if there is a processing error, then it's going to cover up to $25,000 in fees and in errors that are for liability, interest or penalties. And then also Elite Payroll is going to help with making sure that all of the forms are submitted and any type of amendments need to be submitted. You're going to have Elite help for that. You also get QuickBooks Time Elite tracking. We'll look at what exactly does that mean. And then the personal HR. That's super cool. So that's going to be one of those, the HR piece for premium and for Elite, I think are often just kind of overlooked. So we're going to look at what you can do with those. And then the multi-state filing, if you are in Elite, there is no extra charge. So if you've got a client who maybe has workers that are in multiple states, then you would probably want to look at the Elite subscription level for them. So that way they're not charged additional per state. If you've got a client who's in Core or who is in Premium, there's an additional fee. You can still process more than one state, but there's an additional fee for that. So it's talking about QuickBooks Online Payroll being full service, and that's Core, Premium, or Elite. All three levels are full service, but you do have the option to turn it on and turn it off. So what that means is if you're somebody who's like me, I want the ePay and the e-filing forms to be automatic. Yes, I want to be able to review either prior to them being submitted or after the fact, being able to look to make sure that I agree with the submission. Not that I've had an issue, but that's more of the role that a lot of us are starting to take, is more of the, we're creating these types of partnerships with full service. Just make sure that it's done and there's no late filings. There's been some questions about if you decide that you don't want it to be automatic, you can still turn off this automate taxes and forms. You can turn it off and you can still e-file and e-pay inside of QuickBooks. It's just you have a button that you have to click. So it's a lot like Intuit Online Payroll. You could do the exact same thing. You could push the button yourself, or you could have full service in Intuit Online Payroll as well. This is the lineup right here. We were talking about the per employee price. So you've got the retail price, and then you also have the per employee price, and then you also have the wholesale pricing. And this is just a nice overview of what all is included in each subscription level. If you are somebody who's a pro advisor and you want to be able to offer your discounts, you can see the subscription price is reduced. The per employee price is the same. So that part stays the same. Let's see, we were talking about the standalone. Inside of this PDF handout, you've also got standalone options for being able to go and look at what are the pricing there. The pricing for payroll is going to be the same, but you could look at some of the options. And like this says, you can later go ahead and add on the accounting inside of a standalone. If you've got somebody who's maybe just beginning to start up a business, they want to be able to have payroll. For right now, they're doing their accounting in some other solution. That would be another fit for them. I'm going to move over into HR and to that conversation. But before I do want to take a look at some of the chat questions to make sure that I'm answering a lot of these questions. Joy, you just had somebody who migrated and they were able to migrate the first year. Is it possible to have a QuickBooks desktop and use QuickBooks Online Payroll as a standalone? Yeah, so that would be something if you said, I want to be able to keep my client in QuickBooks Desktop, Enterprise, whatever it is that they're in, and you wanted to have a standalone payroll subscription, you certainly could. In fact, just like with, you can export some of that information if you wanted to. You could do like a summary. Let's see. Yeah, I use Intuit Online Payroll now for desktop. Yes, it will be sunset. So yes, you do, RC, you want to figure out what you want to do with those payroll clients because that program is being sunset. You could have the new QuickBooks Online Payroll as a standalone, absolutely. And so yes, you could do something just like the previous question. So yes, you could have QuickBooks Desktop and it could be hosted or not hosted, whatever. And then you could have the standalone. And then you're going to need to decide, how do you want to have that payroll information inside of QuickBooks Desktop? Are you going to want to do a journal entry by summary? Some people really like to have the details out of their accounting, so that would be something you would want to think about. So this, Gwendolyn, you asked one of my favorite questions is, can we do a class breakdown inside of QuickBooks Online Payroll? And the answer is yes. Let me go ahead and show QuickBooks Online Payroll before I go into HR resources. And so this is a QuickBooks Online company, and this company does have payroll. It does have time inside of this subscription. This is a test environment, so we're going to have some of the settings aren't going to be available to us because it is a test environment. But if I go over into my account and settings here, I'll be able to see, I can see my subscription level, and this particular client is inside of premium. So if I wanted to, I could always come over here and I could upgrade or downgrade. And if this was a client who only had payroll, there just wouldn't be a QuickBooks Online subscription. Let's go look at your question, Gwendolyn, that you asked about classes. So if I go into my payroll settings, one option that I have is to turn on classes by coming down into my accounting and edit my accounting to include class tracking. So this test environment has several different classes, and each of these employees is associated with a class. So this is the, whenever payroll's being ran, this is the default class that will be tracked for each of those employees. So whenever I pull a profit and loss by class, because the default class has been set up, whenever Dan Miller has a paycheck, then all of his payroll, wages, and taxes are going to be associated with the class residential construction. Great question. Let's see. I'm going to switch back over to talking about, let's talk about HR for a minute, because we've got a lot of cool features over here, and I want to share. I want to make sure we have time to share those. Okay. So if you are inside of QuickBooks Online Payroll Premium or Elite, you have HR levels. So Premium is going to have HR Support Center, which we're going to look at, and then Elite is going to have a personal HR advisor. I have done lots of things HR level on the premium level inside of the support system center and been really, really happy with the features that I've got there. So everything that we're going to be looking at today is really going to be on that premium HR level. What QuickBooks did is they partnered with Mammoth to be able to offer HR. So that's who's helping to power all of the HR questions and resources. So inside of the HR Resource Center, you're going to have templates for hiring. You're going to have templates for setting policy, HR guidance, and this is going to be based on state that your client is in. And then also conflicts, termination, being able to, what kind of warnings can you give, and also being able to make sure that you've got clarification. So inside of employee handbooks. One of the things that we have found, and our firm works a lot with businesses who haven't clearly defined all of the roles of the people in the business. So oftentimes what happens is the business has gone through a growth and they needed to be able to hire to handle the new volume of work. So they hire somebody, they put them into the position, and they've never really clearly defined the position. So one of the reasons that we've been using the HR resources is for exactly that, to make sure that you're creating a job posting that has the delegated duties that are assigned to that job posting. And then it's much easier to say, did they or did they not meet the expectations of that job that they were hired into? So for example, whenever you're thinking about hiring, one of the areas that I feel like oftentimes is missed is this breakdown of what are the tasks, what are the general descriptions of what those tasks are, and then being able to associate with the person that is actually doing those tasks. So they might have lots of tasks and then subsets of those tasks, but if they don't have a good breakdown, it's really difficult to be able to hire into that position and then have high levels of expectations whenever it comes to performance. So without making this a really difficult objective to obtain, one of the tools that you have available to you is inside of the HR Wizard. So you can go inside of this HR Wizard at the premium or elite level, and you've got options for being able to create templates that are here, so you can edit those as needed to be able to make sure that you've got an employee handbook, that you're going into also creating those job descriptions. There's really nice templates that are available. There's also really nice job offerings templates. So I'm going to go over into payroll so you can see what I'm talking about. So if I go into payroll and I'm going over into HR Advisor, I can come over into this area and I can start to look for hiring and onboarding. Here's where I can say I've got my job description. This is pretty cool because it has quite a few job description templates that are available for you to download. So we've got accounting, we've got all these different industries. We can go through, even transportation. You've got all kinds of even restaurant and hospitality. So what are they going to be doing? And then once you say, okay, this is the template that I want to be able to use, then you can take that template and you can download it. I'm going to show you one here that we used, and then you can edit it as you want to. So for us, we wanted to hire an accounting manager. We used the template that was available inside of the HR resources, and we're able to post a position that was clearly defined. So we had all the duties and the responsibilities, and then what did we want their skill set to be? And that's how we were able to attract the right type of worker to come into that job. And then next, what we did was we created a job offer based off of our templates, because everything that's in red, you can go and edit. And then we were able to say, now our job offer matches our job description. And then now we can start to have higher levels of expectation because we've got cohesiveness. Those are all things that are available to each of you whenever you're using the premium or elite subscription levels. The other thing that I feel like is often amiss is whenever you're hiring and you've got these job descriptions and these job expectations, they don't always get communicated over to your employee. And I think that COVID has definitely been something that's brought this to light. What are the expectations? What are the employees allowed to do? There's been a lot of turnover. I think that in our experience, since 2020, we've had probably about a 35% rate of turnover, increase of turnover inside of some of the clients that we assist. And people are just able to go to different jobs and they've got more online options. And so being able to communicate what your company culture is in a very quick onboarding process allows you to then be able to also set if they've violated some of those policies. Also, what is your technology policy? For us, that was a big one. So inside of your tools, you've also got employee handbook. The employee handbook, I'm going to take you over there, but we're not going to go through all of these. And the reason we're not going to is there is so much here. I'm going to show you, you have this express option, or you can say that you want to have a customized employee handbook. Whenever we went through and we created employee handbooks for our clients or for our own firm, you can see that it takes a little bit to get started. So you want to go through and you want to start saying, what state are you in? What are the things that are important to you? For us, technology is hypercritical. We want to make sure that everybody knows what tools that we use. So I'm going to show you an example of our employee handbook that we created inside of the HR Mammoth tools. And then we're able to provide this to our clients or for our employees. So you can see it's 39 pages. Because of the way that we answered the questions inside of the wizard, the HR wizard, we were able to say, what are important to us? We were able to fill in an introduction into who we are as Accounting Lifeline, and then also being able to say what's important to us. And so a breakdown of equal opportunity is important for us. And then anniversary dates, seniority, so who's going to get time off, being able to say that we also have how do you need to conduct yourself, and then compensation. So what is our pay periods? We're able to do a breakdown per state. Some states have different pay guidelines that you need to follow. And I think a lot of times businesses aren't even aware of all of their state requirements, but being able to have some type of handbook allows them to actually learn their state and actually stay compliant, because these employee handbooks need to be updated at least annually. And you're going to get notifications once you start using these tools. You'll get notifications that there's been a state update. What do you do for leave? What are those expectations? And then we have, by state, what's going to be the requirements by state. So here we're able to then say, well, if we have any of these outlined policies that are violated, what's going to happen? So we could even put in here, if we're talking about a write-up, we're keeping track of that, and then also any type of termination. But you can see this is pretty robust, and we were able to create this in probably about 30 minutes. We can update it as we need to, but I've been pretty happy with the HR resources, and this is inside of a premium subscription. I'm going to go over and I'm going to look inside of chat. Ooh, this is also really interesting, the minimum wage map. I'm going to go over inside of chat and I'm going to look to see, let's see. Oh, there was one more question about classes. Gwendolyn, if you're trying to split time between classes, you would need to create some type of additional journal entry in order to be able to divide up that classes, because there's just one default class per employee. Let's look and see. Intuit Online Payroll, multiple classes for paycheck. So Francis, one of the questions that you have is really related to time tracking. So, and really, Gwendolyn, your question might also be addressed with time tracking. I don't see any HR questions, so I'm going to stop here and I'm going to move over into talking about QuickBooks Time, because it looks like some of the questions that you have around classes might actually be answered inside of QuickBooks Time. But I think this is pretty cool. So I like that little calculator, because now that we have so many different online workers, it's nice to be able to see at a glance what is their current minimum wage, so that way you know where do you need to at least start whenever you're offering a job to somebody. Okay, so one of the questions that has been asked a couple of times is being able to track multiple classes. I would say instead of wanting QuickBooks to use the default area, maybe what you would want to do is on the time tracking level, you'd want to be able to enter in classes. So you can use inside of QuickBooks Online Payroll, you could come over here and you would say, all right, I've got this employee and I want to be able to list what customer were they working on. Here's the customer that they were working on. I could even put in, was it regular pay? Was it pay that was associated to construction or landscaping? If I've got different types of groups, maybe even office workers. And then here I'd be able to say, all right, I want to track my classes, and this worker had 5 hours that were for commercial. And then I could come down and I could say, all right, he worked on somebody different later on in the afternoon, and he had a different, maybe he was doing residential. And so he had his remaining 3. So if you are using the timesheet, this is going to override the default. So hopefully that answered your question if you wanted to be able to track multiple classes. I think there was probably about 4 questions about tracking classes, multiple classes. You can make it hourly, billable hourly or not. The other, leave without saving, yes. The other option is, we were talking about QuickBooks Time. So for QuickBooks Time users, whenever you are inside of a premium or elite subscription, you've got access to QuickBooks Time, formerly known as T-Sheets. But inside of QuickBooks Online Payroll, I can launch QuickBooks Time, and from inside QuickBooks Time, here's where I would want to, at the employee level, track time. So for those of you who are familiar with the app is really easy for your workers to use. And I use the term workers intentionally because you can have workers that are employees or contractors, and they can track time. So I could come over and I can say time clock. I would be able to enter any of my time entries. If I was inside the app, I'd be able to enter in my own time. If I was somebody who was the office manager and I was entering in a particular employee's time, then I would be able to have manual control over that. But otherwise, I could just say for one employee, I could put in that employee's name, and then so from Miller, and then I could say he started at maybe 8 a.m. And I would recommend that your employee be the one who does this on the app instead of in the desktop browser. But for example, you could still have your list of customers. You could say whether or not it was billable, yes or no. And then again, you'd have that class level and your payroll option for being able to say what is it that, that they were working on. And then we can save that time. So inside of QuickBooks Time, you would then be able to have lots of reports that you could run. Let's say consulting. Let's just give them something. Once the time is in here, and let's say that our employee was added that through the app, we could then come back from a management point of view and we could edit. If we needed to make any change, we say, oh, he really didn't clock out at 2:53. He forgot to clock out at 1 p.m. So as a manager, I could edit that time. And then there's lots of reports to be able to review reports before the time is then imported into, let's go ahead and do, this is a test environment. So let's do May. And I can see at a glance how many hours did we have that were regular hours, how many hours that were overtime, and then I could dive into the time worked for each of those. And you can see here, these hours were added by the employee themselves, the worker themselves, and they were able to put in all of their details and then even some notes. I'm going to flip back over to looking at questions that you may have. And inside these slides, you'll see right here, we flipped from the employee handbook over to QuickBooks Time, and then being able to look at QuickBooks Time, knowing that you've got options available for Why would you want to use QuickBooks Time? So you're moving away from paper cards, and then the different levels. Let me flip over into questions to see what you've got. So, Francis, it sounds like you're doing Excel timesheets. Exactly. QuickBooks Time is really, in my experience, we've used quite a few time tracking apps. It's the easiest one. It was previously T-Sheets. We know Intuit does a really great job of, if there's a solution out there that's working really well, sometimes they acquire it. And that's what happened in T-Sheets. That was a celebration for them to be acquired by Intuit. And now QuickBooks Time and QuickBooks Online Payroll have a really tight integration. So if I had employees or contractors that were using QuickBooks Time, then whenever it was time to process payroll, instead of going through and needing to manually edit or enter a timesheet, instead I would just be reviewing and managing those timesheets. So I can still make edits to it as the office payroll manager. The thing that's different with Elite QuickBooks Time is that you've got geofencing, you've got the ability, that one of the biggest things that call outs is here, the project estimates versus actual reports. So if you are a construction client and it's really important for you just to be able to track labor and make sure that you are tracking labor estimates versus actual, then you would want to be able to have in real time, what was the estimate for maybe even that phase? Maybe you have a remodel and there's a tear out phase and then there's a rebuild phase. So you would be able to say, I estimated it was going to take us 5 hours for the tear out, and then it was going to take us 20 hours for the rebuild. You would be able to see in real time, are you on track for that? Or did you deviate from your plan and you need to go back and maybe figure out what happened? Maybe there was some rot that you didn't expect. Let's see, I think we're pretty good on questions here. So the last thing that I'm going to go ahead and talk about is the payroll certification. We did a really high level today going through and talking about QuickBooks Online Payroll. We talked about the migration, which there's a lot of questions here that looks like you might still have some questions about migrating. So Gary, we might do some more, another article talking about migrating to make sure that we've got all questions answered here. But whenever it comes to QuickBooks Online Payroll, you can do a standalone, or you can have it integrated into your QuickBooks Online accounting subscription. You've also got HR resources that are available to you whenever you're in Premium or Elite. And then you also have QuickBooks Time. So there's lots of things that are going on inside of the new QuickBooks Online Payroll lineup. We just did a high level touch on it. What I'm going to say, if you're somebody who would like to learn more, the QuickBooks Online certification is going to take you through all of the training. So there's training that's been developed for using QuickBooks Online product as a payroll solution. And so it's got 4 different modules that you can go through. But for the exam, what you really want to do is make sure that you're ready for that exam by taking not only the QuickBooks Online Payroll training for the product training, but you also want to do the Payroll Specialist Fundamental Training. And what that Specialist Fundamental Training is going to talk you through, what does it mean, workers classifications? What does it mean to have employee benefits? And all of these things are important whenever you're processing payroll. And so that's why QuickBooks has started to really dive into what does it mean to be a payroll specialist? What is a 941? What is a unemployment report? And what things do you need to know about voluntary and involuntary deductions? So that way, whenever you're using the product, you're better equipped. So when it comes to taking the exam, you really need these 2 trainings. And what I'm seeing right now is some people are doing the QuickBooks Online product training, but they're missing some of the payroll specialist training. And a lot of those questions inside of this certification are going to be based on both the product and also on being a payroll specialist. So I'm going to go ahead and say, Gary, you want to launch our last poll? So are you interested in learning more about QuickBooks Online Payroll? Are webinars like this useful to you? We were able to really, at that high level, go through and talk about QuickBooks Online Payroll as a solution. But as you can see, there's a lot to cover here. So I'm going to count us down 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then, so I'm going to say 65% of you saying yes, that you'd like more payroll information helps us to really know what to develop for you. But as of today, we're out of time. So I want to thank you all for attending. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Gary. Gary, thank you so much for allowing me to share with all of the Insightful Accountant viewers all about some of payroll lineup.
Absolutely, Liz. Thank you. Thanks for being here and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Every time I learn something, every time I moderate one of these. So again, thanks. And then there is one other poll that I do want to post up there, and this is more for on the Insightful Accountant side, really trying to just ensure that we are covering the topics that the audience is looking for. So if you could just choose, you may want info on all of them, but if you had the choice, if you could choose one, which of these would you like to see us writing more on a more regular basis? Some of them we may be writing on already, but there just may not be, we may not be able to put enough words out there to get you up to speed on some of these things, like like payroll, based on what we just learned from Liz. But this just helps us kind of tailor our content so that we are again writing what the audience wants to learn more about. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out in about 5 seconds. If you want to participate, go ahead. And for those who did, we certainly appreciate it. And for those who did not, that's all right too. We appreciate you being here for this round of QB Talks. And we do have the next installment of QB Talks is April the 20, Liz, do you remember the date? Or is it 16th? No, it wouldn't be the 16th. I think it's the 21st. But there's a link is in the chat for registering for that. If you remember, if you are a regular attendee of QB Talks, you will receive a separate email reminder of that event. If you happen to sign up for this particular event today, or for today's event, you will not be included in that series. So you will need to go and register, and then you'll be included in the series moving forward, starting in April. So Liz is going to be our speaker for that. And the content is creating a profitable firm using the Buddy system. Liz is going to be discussing the different types of services you can offer, setting pricing for growth, negotiating new pricing from existing clients, and utilizing integrations to help create normalized pricing. So with that, we will go ahead and wrap this up. Liz, again, thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you, everyone who was able to show up today. We understand it's tax season and 2 more weeks, right? Well, a little bit longer, but 2.5 weeks. And you'll at least be through the official deadline, but we all know it never ends there. So thank you again. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, everybody who participated. We look forward to seeing you all on a future QB Talks webinar. Thank you.